So, the old 6th Street Bridge is arguably one of the biggest icons in the City of Angels. Now, Hollywood is no stranger to its status and historical importance, so sufficing to say, many filmmakers and music artists have immortalized it in their music and film. So normally, I do locations for a dedicated movie, which I don't plan on stopping, but these single locations around Los Angeles are home to many of our favorite films. Sometimes when watching movies, you don't even realize how close some of these scenes take place to one another, sometimes even overlapping. So I've decided it would be best to dedicate a new series on my channel to these amazing locations in LA. I guarantee after watching, you'll be in complete awe and amazement. This is Icons of LA. So first, a quick history lesson on the 6th Street Bridge, as it exists as both 1 and 2 locations in one. So let me explain. Spanning 3,500 feet, connecting Boyle Heights to the Art District in downtown LA, the 6th Street Bridge is in kind of a funny position as its iconic status now exists in the past as well as the present. Large unfixable cracks were formed over the years caused by the concrete's composition that was used back in 1932. So apparently it was high in alkali, which led to the structure suffering from what's called alkali silica reaction, or ASR for short. So basically, back in the day, they mixed cement that was high in alkali with a silicate aggregate, causing a reaction when moisture is introduced. Expansion then occurs over time, causing cracks that are absolutely unfixable. The bridge went under inspection and was said to have a 70% chance of collapse within the next 50 years. Of course, that led to the tough decision to demolish and reconstruct the bridge. Funny enough though, it's the only icon of the city that suffered from ASR. Thankfully, its neighboring 1st, 4th, and 7th Street bridges are all still solid as ever. Shortly after the bridge was closed, many Angelinos came together to celebrate and say goodbye to the old 6th Street Bridge. I'm talking parties, get-togethers, car meets, and even fucking concerts were all held on the 6th Street Bridge just to give love to an old friend that we were all gonna miss.
It's almost a landmark day for me because that will probably be the last time a lot of people drive on that bridge. But it also showed me the amount of love and support for the 6th Street Bridge.
Now, demolition began on February 5th, 2016 and didn't see completion for 9 months. Construction on the new 6th Street Bridge began shortly after demolition was complete. We then jumped 6 years later, and on July 9th, 2022, the new and improved 6th Street Bridge was finally open to the public, and it was pure chaos.
Brand new bridge was built. People have been climbing on the arches, and there have been takeovers and that sort of thing.
Crowds taking over the new city landmark. Cars stopping and starting, people getting out and taking pictures, cars burning out and skidding.
And look at this, the new 6th Street Bridge has only been open for a week and already
It's had plenty of trouble. It seems night after night. There was a truck that got rear-ended. There was an accident last night.
That's the sound of the latest crash that leaves more wreckage and brings in a crowd, some even climbing atop the steel arches. It's just another night of lawlessness here on the new 6th Street Bridge. That along with all the other craziness.
Accident, yeah, car accident. Yeah, I seen it on Instagram.
I've seen guys on the bikes on the arches, you know, taking their bikes, BMXing on the arches. Right in the middle of the yellow lane, somebody was getting over on take.
So you kind of wish they would have a little more respect for.
They're now considering installing cameras out on the bridge to take a deeper look, and the street racing team task force is also out here monitoring the scene, making sure things stay safe.
Welcome to the 6th Street Bridge here in beautiful downtown LA, which is right behind me if you couldn't tell. And today we're going to be doing filming locations that take place or took place in and or around the 6th Street Bridge. Now, obviously this isn't the old 6th Street Bridge where all those movies, I want to say most, but it's actually all those movies took place. But thankfully, despite all the demolition and new construction over here on the Arts District side of downtown LA, there are still some buildings and landmarks that we can still make out in the scenes. Okay guys, right before we begin, I'm excited, but I want to show you this before we start. You see that electrical tower right there? Well, that electrical tower is the same one we see in T2 when the T1000 makes his debut in the future. Or present, I should say. So for the first stop on this tour of filming locations on the 6th Street Bridge, we actually have to switch sides. Now, thankfully, not too far from here, there's an entryway to a little walkway, or it's more of a bridge under a bridge, to get you safely across the other side without having to, jump across this or run across this playing Frogger with your life, And thankfully, that bridge leads to this spiral walkway where you can actually get a really good shot of the viaduct, which is very important for a couple of these filming locations because otherwise I wouldn't be able to see it because one, there's construction on this side, and two, well, it's pretty much impossible to peer over the bridge because there's at least a good, 6 feet, which, not to mention that I'm definitely not gonna even dare step on this side of the railing. And that's very important because without that, I wouldn't have been able to show you these locations short of, going into the viaduct, which, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. So I'll see you on that side. Okay guys, so here we are on the spiral walkway on the other side of the 6th Street Bridge. Now, like I said, this place has its advantages because we can actually see into the viaduct and the bottom of the bridge, which is important for these next few locations. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first movie that comes to mind anytime you mention the LA River, of course, is, that's right, Grease.
You ain't gonna see me for Suko.
So as the race begins, everybody who came to see the race is either on the corner right here of the entryway, which I want you to keep this in mind, and what used to be the support that was right here for the 6th Street Bridge arches. And how they got up on this support, you got me, man, because it is pretty tall. So how they were on there, your guess is as good as mine. So the race begins, and we have them racing this way to the right, going toward 4th Street. Now, they pass under 4th Street, get to the neighboring 1st Street Bridge, and on 1st Street Bridge, there's a concrete divider in the middle to help break the water when it's coming down the LA River. Now, they enter it going on the left-hand side. They split up, they do a U-turn and then split up coming this way. They're coming toward 4th Street, and that's when they end up on top of the viaduct like this, on the side of the viaduct. Now, we get a couple of close-up and medium shots, and to artificially lengthen the distance between the 4th Street Bridge and the 6th Street Bridge, for a more exciting ending, of course, they cut back to some footage of them being on this side of the viaduct, going back toward 4th Street, and with 1st Street in the background. They then do a couple more medium shots, and they end up coming back this way towards 6th Street, where they do the little, I guess they come off the side of the viaduct, they ramp, this cat stalls out, and then we have John Travolta finishing the race, coming out victorious. And that's Thunder Road. Okay guys, I have a question for you. When you guys think of the Dark Knight trilogy, what city do you think of? Chicago, New York? I don't blame you because most of principal photography took place there. But what if I told you that at the start line of Thunder Road is actually the location where they shot the scene where they're making Gordon walk across the ice river? Yeah, that actually happened right here. And if you pay close attention in the movie, you can see the old 6th Street Bridge archways. So trip out on that. So like I said, this is the ice river that they used in The Dark Knight Rises. Now, like I said, the archways met here on the old 6th Street Bridge, and there was a little base for them that is no longer there, obviously, and that base can be seen in the movie along with the archway that runs along it. Okay, so thankfully we have the drone here so that I can get a better shot of what I'm trying to show you. So the archway here, you can see that it spans from one end of the viaduct to the other. Now, the old 6th Street Bridge, both of the archways met right here in the middle, and that's where the base would have been, right about here. Now, Gordon and everybody would have been standing right about here, and you can see the entryway to the viaduct right behind them. So Batman would have came in from what is our right hand side, looking at Gordon with the entryway to the viaduct right behind him. So let's jump over to the neighboring 4th Street Bridge. Now, for this next shot, for some reason, they decided in End of Watch that they would use this shot right here as some B-roll. And with the lens they use, you can make out this little indent that's right here next to the train track. And the shot they would have used would have looked something like this right here, but of course with the lens they use, they're able to capture more of the scenery, which I'm not able to. And they get a shot like this of the old 6th Street Bridge. For some reason they decided to do that at the 32 and 21 second mark, 32 minutes and 21 seconds. Why they did it, I have no idea, but this is not YouTube footage, this is from the movie. So here we are, guys, across the way from the 6th Street Bridge. We're right here on the 4th Street Bridge, or the Wallace Bridge if you want to go by what the movie calls it, but it's the 4th Street Bridge in real life. Now right behind me, right here, is where we almost lost the man himself, Joe Dirt. So the scene starts with a crane shot coming up this way. As we're looking this way toward Joe Dirt, we can see his silhouette. We then get a close-up of him, and the camera pans around him, coming up from the LA River. We can make out this part of the bridge, the lamppost, and that part of the bridge. And as it pans around him, in the background, you can just make out the two archways of the old 6th Street Bridge for about a split second, but they're there. So right here is where all the cops and the media would have been trying to talk Joe down from the ledge, which is this one right here.
We are here at Wallace Bridge, where local celebrity Joe Dirt is threatening to kill himself.
Come on, Joe.
We then have Brandy pull up. You can see downtown LA in the background of the shot. She comes in, saves the day, and we still have Mr. Joe Dirt. So thank you, Brandy, for saving the day and saving Mr. Joe Dirt.
Sorry, lady, you can't come.
I love you, Joe, with all my heart. I want to get married, Joe, and have little Joe Dirts. Come home, Joe. You had a home all along. You just couldn't see it.
That's right, I did say Hammy. Woo, dang. God, I love that movie so much. But yeah, I'm glad I made it out here, you know? I got to do the rest of the filming locations for Joe Dirt, but because this has to do with the 6th Street Bridge, I have to include it, even though this is 4th Street. Or Wallace, or whatever you want to call it. Oh, one more thing. Remember, life's a garden. Dig it, brother. So here we are, back on the 6th Street Bridge a few days later, and we're gonna start now on the main part of what was the old bridge. Right now we're standing in the center of the viaduct, and that is where the two archways would have met. So right behind me, right here, would have been right in between the two archways, and there are a lot of filming locations that actually take place in between or and around those archways, obviously, because that's like the main focal point of the old 6th Street Bridge. So I'm gonna put in this picture here to give you guys a point of reference of exactly where we're at. That way you kind of have an idea, and hopefully it doesn't get too confusing when I start pointing out all these locations. So like I mentioned, the 6th Street Bridge is not only home to a bunch of movies and film, but also a couple music videos, well, a few music videos actually, and I want to highlight 2 of them today. And one of them is actually one of my favorite songs of all time. That would be Nelly Furtado, Say It Right, was filmed right here on the old 6th Street Bridge. So in the music video, we have Nelly standing over here on what would have been the Boyle Heights side of the 2 archways. She would have been walking toward Boyle Heights. The camera would have been facing downtown LA. Now we can't see downtown LA because it's super dark in the surrounding area. So we would have gotten a shot similar to this one. Now I'm sitting where roughly the pole and the end of the old 6th Street Bridge arch would have been. And she would have been on this lane closest to us, walking that way toward Boyle Heights. So we're gonna have to jump to that side in the middle of that archway, as there are a lot of filming locations, or quite a bit, that take place right there. Here we are on the Boyle Heights side of where the archways began. Now the camera and I are pretty much in the general vicinity of where the archway would have started and ended down the middle of the viaduct, which is right behind the camera, and then the second archway would have began. Now there are a bunch of movies that were filmed in and around those archways, so I'm gonna run through them relatively quickly and give you guys an idea of what happened, and hopefully I can keep everything oriented properly so that you guys don't get confused. Have you guys ever heard of a little movie called SWAT, starring Samuel L. Jackson, LL Cool J, Michelle Rodriguez, Jeremy Renner, and a whole bunch more? Well, the climax of that movie actually takes place right here. So the archway comes to an end right here. Again, across the street is where Nelly Furtado would have been filming Say It Right. And pretty much almost in the exact same location as that music video, they would have been waiting for the plane to land coming from the Boyle Heights side of the bridge.
How wide is the 6th Street Bridge?
It's got to be 4 lanes across.
Next filming location, I want you to take a guess. I'm going to describe the scene and I want you to guess to see if you know where it's from. So as the scene starts, we get a convertible coming up this way with 3 people in it. They get to the first archway, which would have been right about here. They start making a U-turn, and something funny happens in the editing. So after they cut that scene of them doing the U-turn, the camera ends up pushed slightly back to the second archway, and we have them come to a stop. 2 of them get out, they come to the edge of the bridge, and they throw an item over the bridge. And the answer is The Mask. Yeah, how many of you knew that this was the ending scene for The Mask? And like I said, they would have came up this way. Now, just to give you guys some perspective, this archway starts at the beginning of the viaduct, and it spans the entire thing now and ends here. The old archways started there and ended somewhere about right here. The other one started here and ended somewhere back here. So we had a little bit of a middle space with them. Now, in the scene, when they come up this way and they start to U-turn a little early. And then we get some kind of like weird thing in editing that the camera jumps and we end up somewhere over here. And now they're at the bottom of the second archway facing that way. Then they both get off, Tina and Stanley get off and make their way this way to what would have been the old archway, which is right behind them. Now, what they did to create Edge City was that they composited in a shot of New York City, and of course they kept the downtown LA skyline, and then they CGI'd the river that they throw the mask into. Now, where the guy jumps in to get the mask at the end, actually that scene happens somewhere in Long Beach in Terminal Island, like about 5 minutes away from where the Fast and the Furious ending race happened with the Supra and the Charger. Fun fact. But yeah, that didn't happen here. All that was CGI for Edge City, apart from, you know, downtown LA, of course.
Okay.
Right behind me is where Epkiss would have thrown the mask over the bridge. If we turn this way, right here, this seemingly unimportant piece of concrete and electrical tower are actually in the ending credits of Blood In, Blood Out. That's right, this is where Cruz would have been painting that mural, and he shows Paco, and they would have been dancing all up and down and jumping around right here on the viaduct while the camera is zooming out, going underneath the 6th Street Bridge, well, the old 6th Street Bridge, headed that way, and we get the crane shot coming back this way as they're running around the LA River. That would have happened right there. How awesome.
What come? Shit, watcha? Come look at yourself in the mirror, eh?
Oh, man. It's not all marked up, man. It's a sign of respect.
Folks, and I kick your ass.
Shit, oh shit, man. I was breaking hard dead faces, vato.
Oh, Pico, shit. You still can dance, eh? You still can dance, que loco. Yeah, but you can learn this, eh? I'll teach you, Simón, because it ain't ever over, Holmes, ever. Bailamos hasta que nos morimos, ese. Ow, ow.
Okay, so let's just orient ourselves really quickly before we continue, just to keep everybody on track. This is where the car would have came in the mask. They would have U-turned. Stanley and Tina would have gotten out, thrown the mask this way. The plane from SWAT would have came landing in this way. Nally Furtado is standing there, facing that way. The camera is facing this way, of course. We hang a right. We got Joe Dirt over there on this bridge. We got Blood In, Blood Out here. This is Thunder Road, as well as the Ice Lake in The Dark Knight Rises, which is over here. Hopefully that keeps you guys oriented with the 6th Street Bridge. I know it can be a little confusing, but hopefully the way I'm mapping this out and, you know, putting things into perspective helps you guys out figuring out where we're at. I know I said out like 4 times. That sounds so dumb. So here's a really quick one. So here's the LA River right behind me. We turn this way, we get the Archway. Now, like I said, the archways, the old ones used to end somewhere in the middle, and we had this empty space in between the two. The archway that was closest to the Boyle Heights side, that one is used in the movie starring Justin Timberlake, In Time, as Checkpoint 12. Now, it's not one of my favorite movies, but it's a little guilty pleasure that I like to watch from time to time, even though it makes absolutely no fucking sense at times. But yeah, they use the 6th Street Bridge, well, the old 6th Street Bridge, as Checkpoint 12 into the super, super high society city that they had in the movie. Another guilty pleasure movie of mine that happened on the 6th Street Bridge, of course, is the movie Biker Boys. Now, back here is where Epkiss and Tina would have entered with the mask, and this is also the same entrance that's used in the movie Biker Boys when they come in wanting to raise Smoke and the Black Knights, and they come in stunting with the 2 twins on the quads, and this was over here doing a wheelie and a little donut and all that shit. That would have happened right here, right behind me, on, of course, the old 6th Street Bridge. Another guilty pleasure movie of mine, of course. Not the greatest, not the best, but I fucking love movies from the 2000s. And you know what always irked me in that movie, though? His fucking helmet is the ugliest fucking helmet I've ever seen in my life. I don't know who the fuck dressed this guy, but that helmet is god awful. That dude looks so goofy all the time. Tell me it's not just me who thinks that. So we have 2 more filming locations that I want to do on the top of the 6th Street Bridge. We still have a whole other side over here to do, but on the top, as far as the bridge goes, we only have 2 more that I want to put in this video, and those 2 movies are Crank and 1999's Blade. We get a shot of him driving that beautiful 1968 Dodge Charger, which is the absolute most beautiful car ever made in the history of the world. And don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. So anyway, they bring that beautiful 68 Charger down the old 6th Street Bridge. Like I said, the archways would have been here. We get a whole bunch of medium and close-up shots of Blade and Karen as they drive across the 6th Street Bridge. We get some aerial shots of the old archways, of course, and we have Karen looking out of the passenger window to downtown LA. We also do get to see the skyline of downtown LA in the shot. So it's only like a 15-20 second sequence, but nevertheless, it still took place here on the 6th Street Bridge. So Blade, my favorite superhero of all time, driving my favorite car of all time, all came together right here to make one of the best superhero movies that has ever existed, ever. And that's a fact, not an opinion. For this next one, it's also a quick sequence. Well, it's actually two sequences because you see it twice in the movie. In the movie Crank, and if you haven't seen that movie, you need to see it and its sequel. It is an absolutely phenomenal movie, and its sequel as well. Both equally awesome movies, man. So please do yourself a favor and watch those movies if you haven't watched them. 5 minutes into the movie, we see Jason Statham on the phone talking to Ricky Verona, and Doc Miles then calls him back after he leaves him a message, and then he hangs up on Verona, which is absolutely hilarious. And as he answering Doc Miles and talking to him, we see him pass 6th Street Bridge going from the Arts District side to the Boyle Heights side.
Are you good admit it? Yeah, we'll see. You know what the best part about it is? Sorry,
The second time we see the 6th Street Bridge is right after he steals the motorcycle from the cop. He starts cruising all of LA, and he ends up on the 6th Street Bridge for a second time, cruising it, going from the Arts District this time down the Boyle Heights side, and we can obviously see the 6th Street Bridge arches. Okay guys, so we find ourselves here about 2.5 miles away from the 6th Street Bridge on 1714 Naomi, which is this building right behind me. And the reason I bring you here is because this next filming location starts here, actually. And if you don't know what movie I'm talking about the 2011 straight banger Drive with Ryan Gosling. This is where he picks up the burglars. Well, actually, back here is where they're standing, right behind where this fence is. You can see the barbed wire, and you can see the metal iron fence that's here right behind them while they're standing waiting for him to pull up. Scene starts, we have Ryan Gosling coming this direction toward us. He posts up right here with the silver Impala. The two burglars would have been across the street standing there waiting for him right where my Charger's at. They would have seen him pull up. He looks at them, they look at him, and then they cross. And then they break into this this part of the gate. They bust open the padlock, slide in, and then they end up at that door right there. And look, I just made a little friend. Hey, little gatito, how are you? Look, I just made a little friend. He just walked up on me. Yeah, you like filming locations too, huh? You love them, huh? So in the scene, we get a lot of back and forth shots between the building and the Impala that's here as we're waiting for the second burglar to make his way out, you know, just to build a little tension. And in one of the shots, when Ryan Gosling opens the door, it's something similar to this, and there was a church that used to be here that is no longer there. So you might be wondering why we're here on Naomi Street for the movie Drive. Well, if there's one universal truth that I've come to know is that every chase scene, 100% of them that I've ever done filming locations for, always take place like in different sections of the city. It is never one fluent chase, even though in editing, it might seem that way, that they make a right turn, left turn, and they're still following the same path. In reality, they're usually miles away or sometimes even cities away, and Drive is no exception to that rule. Now, why they do it, I have no idea. I don't know why they chose this building, and then they do a few twists and turns in the movie, which I couldn't find those streets, but then they end up on the 6th Street Bridge, 2.5 miles away. And a matter of fact, not only do they end up on the 6th Street Bridge, but they end up on both sides. They end up first they start on the Arts District side, and then they edit it, and he's making a left turn, which I'll show you, of course, and he's on the Boyle Heights side, crossing back over to the Arts District side. But of course, in editing, it doesn't seem that way. It seems like one fluent chase. But in reality, it's completely separate, and it's just all over the place. Now, why they decide to do it that way, I have no clue. But let's just head over to the 6th Street Bridge, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So we jump over here to Mato Street, and in the shot, we can see that Ryan Gosling is right behind the police officer who's shining his spotlight over here to the right, or to the buildings to the right. Now, we're going down Mateo, like I said, and we're going towards 6th Street. The bridge is currently to our left. And in the shot, you can see that brown building in the background, the 6th Street sign, and the Southwestern Bag Company for a split second. Now, inexplicably, even though the bridge is to our left, he hangs a right here on 6th Street. We then get a close-up shot, and then it miraculously just cuts to the Boyle Heights side of things. So here we are in Boyle, and the scene picks up right here, turning left onto Whittier, which leads to the 6th Street Bridge. Now you can see that laundromat in the background for a split second, and then he makes his way down the 6th Street Bridge, where halfway through, the helicopter spots him. Once the driver reaches the end of 6th Street, which is right here, he hangs a left on Santa Fe. He then goes into the tunnel and reverses back this way and posts up right here on this side of the tunnel. So we then get a shot like this while they're waiting out the helicopter, whose spotlight lights up all this side of the bridge and the adjacent buildings right here on 6th Street. After the coast is clear and the helicopter is long gone, the driver then takes off and continues the chase throughout downtown LA, ending up at the Staples Center where he makes a clean getaway, of course. Okay, so just for clarification's sake, I need to make you guys aware of something. So the 6th Street Bridge, which is right here behind me, obviously, that is technically Whittier, and 6th Street is this street that I'm on. So anytime I say 6th Street from this point forward, I'm gonna be talking about this area or this part of the street rather than the bridge unless otherwise specified. So just to keep you guys not so confused, because I know it can get confusing. Okay, so with that cleared up, right behind me, this is 6th Street, and this is where 6th Street meets Imperial. Now, this right here is home to another movie with a great chase scene in it, and I'm gonna frame it up the way it's framed in the movie, and I'm gonna give you guys a few seconds to guess what it is before I tell you. So this is the shot that we roughly get. Any guesses? Well, this is the area midway through the chase with Eleanor in Gone in 60 Seconds with Nicolas Cage. So here we are, where Imperial meets 6th Street. And this right here is where Memphis and Eleanor would have came out of. And then Memphis would have looked left and right, deciding which way to go, despite it being a one-way. But obviously we wouldn't know that in the movie. But now that I know that, it's hilarious that he decides, thinking that he can possibly go left. But he ends up going right anyway. And he goes towards Santa Fe. Now when he gets to the end of Santa Fe Street, he looks left and right again. And looking left, toward that way, on the other side of the 6th Street Bridge, he sees a police officer pull out. That's when he decides to reverse, and in desperation, he tries to cut it too close, and he ends up clipping Eleanor's mirror, breaking it on, I think it's a box truck that was right parked in front of this garage that I'll show you in a minute. And that's where Eleanor dies on him because the carburetor floods, or, you know, as we're led to believe that Eleanor's mad at him for breaking the mirror. So as Eleanor and Memphis hang a right here on 6th Street, they make their way down towards Santa Fe, like I said. Now the camera would have been placed behind some chain link fence that used to be here on the old 6th Street Bridge, where underneath they would store, I guess it was like utility vehicles for the city. Now obviously it's gonna be a little tough to get the shot that they got in the movie because they have a wider lens, not to mention that they're further back, which I can't be, of course, obviously. But we get a shot of this wall, the fence here, I believe this fence as well, and of course this garage, which can be seen also in Drive if I didn't mention it. So after that shot, we end up coming over here to Santa Fe, and when we reach the end here, this right here is where Memphis would have looked left and right, deciding which way to go. He would have turned left and seen the cop come out of right here, then decided to reverse to get out of the line of sight of the cop. He reverses this way, all the way back here. And right here is where he would have reversed and clipped the truck and hit Eleanor's mirror, breaking it off, and Eleanor would have stalled out on him right here.
Scratch, Eleanor, can be fixed.
So I don't know if I mentioned this, but on the shot where Memphis and Eleanor are coming up 6th Street, we see a work truck right here posted up, and after he starts reversing, that truck like magically moves, and then it's parked over here somewhere in this general area, and that's where he clips Eleanor's mirror, breaking it off, and then ends up stalling out right here by that utility pole. They stall out right here next to that utility pole, like I said, and the shot we get is something like this. So how wild is that, that both of these movies with great chases in them share a similar filming location? Who would have thought? You know, I hope you guys get excited about this as much as I do, you know, because now that you watch these movies, you're gonna start noticing these things that I'm pointing out, especially that garage back there. You do see it in a lot of movies, you know, or quite a bit whenever you see the 6th Street Bridge. So keep an eye out for that garage right there, along with a few other landmarks that I wanna show you, of course, coming up, including that little tunnel entrance, which I mentioned earlier in the video. That's important too, that's still gonna come up. I haven't forgot about it. So here we are across of Santa Fe. Right here is 6th Street. Now where I'm currently standing, there used to be a building that ran adjacent to the shed that's right here where Eleanor came out of and the driver came out of. That building used to be right in front of this power plant right here. And it used to be about right here somewhere. And they've since demolished it, obviously, but that building can be seen in plenty of movies as well. So it used to run directly across the street. So it was right here is where that building used to exist. A lot of shots in movies took place in between that building and the 6th Street Bridge, and you would get a shot similar to this one with the 6th Street Bridge arches in the background. So like I said, the building used to run along all this right here, and at the end you had a street to turn right, but you also had a way to turn left to get under the bridge. And yes, I know there's a Cybertruck there, which is pretty cool. A lot of people come here to take pictures of their cars, and it's pretty cool, you know? See a lot of crazy shit right here. But anyway, besides that, which is pretty cool, we come this way, and like I said, there was an entryway to get under the 6th Street Bridge. There were also buildings on this side that were demolished, and you can also see them in a couple movies, actually. So here we are on Google Maps to help paint a little bit of a better picture. Now we are standing roughly in this area. This is the building that I was speaking of that is now no longer there, of course. And here's the power plant, just so you can get a point of reference. Right behind us is 6th Street, where Memphis, Eleanor, and the driver would have came up, just to kind of orient yourselves here. Now, if we go down this way, let's see, you can see that 6th Street, you can make a right, which you still can, but you could also make a left to go under the bridge, which you can't do now because right here is where they're doing all that construction. So for these next filming locations, it's actually going to be 5 filming locations in one, because they all take place in the same area, which is underneath the 6th Street Bridge. Now it's going to be 4 movies and 1 music video, and I'm going to try to keep you guys as well oriented as best I can, because it's going to be a little difficult, because as you can see, it is definitely changed from back in the day. So let's see what I can do. We start off here with the aforementioned tower that can be seen in Terminator 2 when the T-1000 makes his debut here at the 6th Street Bridge. Now back in the day, the 6th Street Bridge used to have 3 columns that used to run down right here. They put a prop fence right behind those columns with the hole in it already. The officer would have came from this direction right here, and he's telling dispatch that he's actually on Santa Fe and 6th Street, so he gets it right. And he walks this way toward that pillar, and the camera is actually behind that first pillar, and he makes his way in between the fence, and he walks toward the second pillar where he sees the big hole in the fence. That's when the T-1000 rushes him, kills him, and then leaves his body there. Walks back that way, and you can see the buildings that used to be right here in the background of the T-1000 and the officer too as well when he pulls up. Okay, so obviously this is better with a visual aid, and thankfully Google Maps has great archives of what the 6th Street Bridge used to look like, which is going to come in handy a little later on in this video. Now, here's that electrical tower that I pointed out earlier that you can see right behind the T-1000 when he makes his debut. Now, if we turn this way, here are the aforementioned 3 columns that we get in the shot. Now the camera would have been placed right here facing this way as the officer pulls up, and we would have gotten a shot similar to this one where you can definitely make out these buildings. Now when he gets out, he calls dispatch and says that there is a disturbance on Santa Fe and 6th, so he gets that part of it right, of course. And then he walks this way toward the first column, and right here, just right behind the columns, running across this entire, or spanning across the entire 3 columns, is where that prop fence would have been placed. Now the officer makes his way right here and goes in between that fence and the first column right here, making his way this way toward the second column, and this is where we see the big hole that the T-1000 made while coming to the future. Now the T-1000 would have been here somewhere, and he would have bum rushed the cop and killed him right here in the same area. Now the T-1000 makes his way back toward the cop car, and we get a similar shot to this one again, because obviously the car is parked in the same spot.
Literally in the same spot, we have the next filming location, and that belongs to the movie Horrible Bosses, which was literally filmed on the exact same spot that the officer parks in Terminator 2. Now, why they picked that location, I have no idea. I don't know if they knew that that's where Terminator 2 happened, or they just liked it and said, hey, let's do it here. Because it was a really nice spot to film, but I don't know if they chose it because it was from Terminator or just because. But yeah, Horrible Bosses, the ending takes place right there also.
Hey, his name is Almanon.
So here we are with the somewhat complicated part of this little adventure of ours. Now, the reason I say it's complicated is because once upon a time, there used to be an entryway over here into a tunnel off of Santa Fe that you could take, even though you weren't supposed to, you could take it and it would lead you down all the way over here into the viaduct itself. So you can see that there's a slope right underneath the new 6th Street Bridge, which was part of that tunnel, and it leads to a little entryway that's right over there, which I'll show you from some drone footage that I got, some really good drone footage that I got actually. And just to keep you guys in sync with everything, right over there is the T-1000, where we talked about the T-1000 and Horrible Bosses. So the ramp ran up this way, going all the way over here to Santa Fe Street. So here we are in Santa Fe, and right behind me would have been the entrance for that tunnel. And this right here where we're standing is where the driver drive would have been parked, waiting for the helicopter to pass, just to give you guys an idea of where we're at. So the start of the tunnel would have been roughly right about here. And that tunnel led downward this way, sloped all the way down up into the viaduct, which you can barely make out right here at the tip of my finger. Now that tunnel entrance can be seen in the movie Mystery Men. If you didn't know, the diner was actually up here. It was a set that was built above that. And in one of the scenes, you can see, it's like an establishing shot. It pans up this way, and you could see, I think it's a bus coming out of the tunnel, and then the camera moves up like this, and we get the shoveler, the Blue Raja, and Mr. Furious talking over dinner right over on the booth that was right over the tunnel entrance.
We'll never get in there, Roy. There are just too many of those disco boys.
Look, I'm telling you, Amazing's in there. I saw him go in.
There's never any evil trios, are there? No, they've all got to travel in gangs, like little babies.
Well, maybe it's time to level the playing field.
Also, that tunnel was used in Gone in 60 Seconds. That's how he exits out of the viaduct with Eleanor. You can actually see that little, I guess it's the column base, the base for the columns that were in the viaduct. You can see it in the background as he's coming up with Eleanor, exiting the viaduct, coming out this way onto Santa Fe Street. That tunnel is also the same tunnel that we see in The Dark Knight Rises. That's the one that they used to lead Gordon down to the ice river. And you can see the base for the archways are also there. You could see them in the background. The same ones you see in Greece, the same ones you see with Eleanor when she's coming up the tunnel. And not to mention, really quickly, the music video, Deuces by Chris Brown was filmed on the viaduct, and he's also in that tunnel singing at points. You could see his silhouette, and of course you see the little bass in the background. And yeah, that's just wild to me that it's all in that same area. Going back to The Dark Knight Rises, that tunnel is also the same tunnel that all the officers get trapped under with the rubble. Now, they kick Joseph Gordon-Levitt into that tunnel as well, and that's where he starts getting his ass kicked. Then Batman comes in, saves his ass, and then gives him the little grenade and tells him to throw it in 5 seconds. Now, that grenade doesn't do jack shit. And then he ends up coming back with his, I think it's the, what is it, the Batwing, I believe? I could be wrong, don't get mad at me, but I think it's the Batwing. And then he ends up shooting the rubble, breaking it, freeing all the officers. That also happens there.
You missed the spot. Something bigger in that belt.
So I wanted to point out a few more things. The aforementioned building that used to be right here, that used to occupy this space, that building can also be seen in quite a bit of movies, obviously, because it is a 6th Street Bridge. Now in Mystery Men, after they get out of the diner, which would have been approximately right about here, they all three would have been walking this way with the building right here on their left-hand side, and Roy would have actually had his motorcycle parked next to that building, and then we would have gotten like a composite shot to make Champion City look even bigger, you know, obviously, because they don't want to use this background. And they, you know, dressed up everything all around it. Even these buildings over here got dressed up with neon and everything to make Champion City come to life. But yeah, that happens right here, and that building can obviously be seen.
3 ways the steak eater picks the pocket of the salad man.
Just give me the money, Jeff.
Yes, fine.
Every time we split it 3 ways.
Flipping robbery.
Well, you should order more.
So that building here is one of the landmarks that you should look out for anytime you're watching one of these movies and it takes place on the 6th Street Bridge, or you notice after watching this video, you notice that things are on the 6th Street Bridge. Try to see if you can make out that building, because it's definitely in quite a bit of shots. See if you can make out the garage that's right here on 6th Street. Of course, the one that Eleanor is by. See if you can make that out. The viaduct tunnel, you can definitely make that out. It's obvious. That one's blatantly obvious. So as I'm wrapping up this video for these filming locations, by looking at my glasses, you can clearly tell that it started raining, which it's been doing that quite often here in LA. But I want to thank you guys for joining me on this adventure to document and show you guys the historical, the historic importance of the 6th Street Bridge. And I hope you guys gained a bigger appreciation for the 6th Street Bridge and the things that were filmed in and around it. I hope some of these things were a surprise to you as they were to me. I really enjoyed making this video. There was a ton of work and a ton of hours put into this, multiple days throughout the weeks. And now I hope when you watch these movies that you can start pointing out these things maybe to your friends or whoever, or even just to yourself. Be like, hey, I know that place. I know that's the 6th Street Bridge, or I recognize this garage, or I recognize the building that was right here on Santa Fe Street. And or maybe like the viaduct entrance, you're gonna be like, hey, that's the 4th Street Bridge, or that's the 1st Street Bridge. And it's just, to me, it's just exciting, and I hope that I brought that same excitement to you guys. And thank you very much for watching these videos, and we're almost there to 1,000 subscribers. Currently, I'm at 681, and I'm so proud of myself for that. And thank you guys so much for believing in me and joining me on these journeys. And I'm getting better with this filming, with the filming and my production quality. It's tough, it's hard, because you have to get drone shots now, and you have to get, there's so many shots to get But it all comes together, and it's very difficult to get those shots, but when they all come together, they make a beautiful, beautiful video, or they make beautiful, you know, just a beautiful, it paints a beautiful picture, a better picture of what I'm trying to show you guys. But I'm just so grateful and thankful for everybody who's taken their time out of their day to come on these little journeys with me. And hopefully we can keep going and climbing up to the top. And we're almost at 1,000, let's get it. So thank you guys from Hollywood and Sunset here in the City of Angels. Peace. Okay guys, bonus time. This building right here is another landmark that I want you guys to keep an eye out for when you're watching these movies. It can actually be seen in plenty of shots in these movies as a background shot.
Fuck, call me talking shit. Just when you thought it